and gentlemen, I'm Matt Sossler alongside Stephen Noble, and we are here with Chicago sports broadcasting legend, Mark Giangreco. Now, Mark, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 42 years. Matt, Stephen, great to be with you here. Highland Park's focus is always one of my focal points of the year. I was been enamored with radio and television forever, and just really wanted to be kind of a top 40 rock jock playing the hits. But you know, as a failed athlete, we all want to get into the business as sportscasters. So I started out in college, University of Dayton, went to Louisville, Kentucky after that, then came to Chicago in 1982. So I've been here for 37 years, probably doing television for about 42 years, and it's really, really changed a lot. We used to be the premier source of entertainment and information, and now we're still viable, but of course it's extremely difficult to compete with social media.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into sports broadcasting?
Well, yeah, like I said, my primary interest was music, and then of course sports. So I combined those. I got a job at the big #1 station in town while I was in college, my sophomore year in college, and they said, you're just going to read the news. And I said, okay. Well, I expanded that to sports and everything else, and kind of became the sidekick to the morning DJ and kind of a zoo show in the morning. And it just evolved from there, and then I was asked to try out for a weekend sportscaster's job there. So I did that, and I remember I had absolutely no idea. I didn't even know what a teleprompter was. So I went for my audition, and they said, do you want a teleprompter? And I went, nah, I don't need it. And my whole audition was like this. But, I gradually learned to love it, and it's just fun to play with video and try to write something clever, and, so I'm still going.
Now, what's your favorite sport to report about, and why?
Well, my favorite sport is hockey. We're a big hockey family. I grew up on the Canadian border up in Buffalo. My 3 kids played hockey through grammar school, high school, and college. And so hockey's my first love. Then I'd say pro football. Baseball has become kind of a controversial topic about, people your age not really being into baseball that much, because the game is so long and so slow, and we need constant stimulation and action. I thought college basketball was kind of a letdown this year just because Virginia and Texas Tech really weren't, premier, iconic, marquee names with stars, but it was still entertaining. The NBA, the NBA is probably more popular than ever, but hockey's still my first love.
So you talked a little bit about how you really had to work your way up in the media industry in different markets from small, medium, and large. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience sort of working through those different markets?
Well, yeah, and it's completely different now because we are actually hiring young people right out of college, right now at ABC7 in Chicago. To be one-man bands, we call them, where you shoot, edit, write, produce, do stand-ups, you're the talent, you're the reporter, you just email everything in or microwave everything in. You do everything yourself, which is kind of going right back to what we did in small markets. We had to learn how to shoot, edit, report, write, do everything ourselves. And so it's come full circle now. But in a small market, it's so hands-on that you learn every single element, to where you're not completely overwhelmed. And, you develop your style on the air. You have to learn how to be yourself on the air instead of just reading a prompter. So Dayton was a good starter market. Louisville was a great television market for me because our station was owned by the Gannett Corporation. And back then, they were so into making all their television stations really uniform with high quality video and terrific photographers, and so that's where I really learned how to do television. So I was more than prepared. In fact, when I came to Chicago, I was watching all the stations and I went, it's not that good. I mean, we did better stuff in Louisville, I thought, but it really prepared me well. Of course, there's no market like Chicago. I mean, it's the greatest sports city in America. I think it's just the greatest city in America, period. And there's always something going on. I mean, it's crazy every day,
Now, going off of that, over your tenure, you've experienced a lot in Chicago sports. What has been your favorite event to cover and why?
Well, I tell you, I've been really lucky. 6 NBA championships, 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Super Bowls, 2 World Series champions. So I've been spoiled rotten. I think probably the Michael Jordan era and just chasing him for 10 years, learning how to walk backwards with a camera and a microphone. That was probably the most exciting. The '85 Bears Super Bowl run, though, probably just a tick above that. I mean, every single player on their team, on that team, had his own radio or TV show. Everybody was a celebrity. Mike Ditka was bigger than life. And so we'd go up to Hallis Hall, and if you missed him sticking gum on your camera, or Walter Payton shooting a bird out of a tree with his Luger, or Jim McMahon just coming out and doing all kinds of crazy things to the fridge, then you were really beaten that day. And back then, there was no cable, no satellite, no internet, no social media, so it was up to you to break a story every day. That's when it was really fun, when it was so competitive.
So you talked about how back in '85 when covering the Bears, there was no social media, no internet. How has the broadcasting changed for you, and how have you adapted to the change?
Great question. I approach my sportscast now as if everyone's already seen everything. I assume everyone knows the story, they've seen the video, it was on their phone instantaneously. So I need to make people tune in and say, okay, well, what's he going to do with this? What's he going to say about this? Try to, have fun with it, take it to the next step. Okay, this happened, so now what happens after this? You have to be current. We used to be on a 24-hour news cycle. Now we're on a 1-hour news cycle. I mean, everything is changing by the hour, so I put my sportscast together assuming everybody's already seen everything and knows the information, but wants to know how I'm going to play with it, how I'm going to present it. I'll have an opinion, do a commentary, make fun of it, make fun of myself, and I love playing with video and the highlights and everything like this. I think the most important part of my broadcast is not the lead story, but the last story. I always try to end with a little kicker that's something funny or controversial, and our source is social media. And to keep up with social media, you have to participate in social media. So there's a lot of cross promotion. We're constantly promoting our television shows on all our social media platforms, and vice versa. So, we're not the main line of information anymore, like I said, but we're certainly viable.
So in media, there's a ton of controversy, especially with something like a controversial call in a game. So how do you deal with something like that? Do you give your own 2 cents on it, or do you?
Yeah, I'm not very objective about anything. I pretty much just give my opinion, and if I'm upset about it, I'll go off on it. If I agree with it, I'll agree with it. But again, this all goes back to just being yourself on the air and not being a performer, reading a teleprompter, or acting like you think you should act. Because especially in a town like Chicago, people can spot a phony in 2 seconds. So if you're going to be emotional about it and have an opinion, make it true,
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for allowing us to interview you. Before we let you go, do you have any final words to say to the students of Highland Park High School?
Yes, I do. If you guys are any example of what's going on here, this is spectacular, because I'm really impressed. Matt, Stephen,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
very
Thank you so
much.
much.